Okay, so the next question is asking us to take this extract for SATB choir, which is written in short score, and it's asking us to rewrite it as an open score, remembering to include any necessary clefs, key signatures, and time signatures. So this is probably quite straightforward, as long as we just remember what we're dealing with and just how we write music for choir. There's a couple of things to think about. The main one is dealing with the tenors. So I sing tenor in choir, and we cause a few problems in terms of clefs. Not massive ones, but just we need to remember that tenors normally read from the treble clef, but they read an octave higher than they actually sing, which makes it easier to read the tenor part, as long as we remember that that's the case. So we use treble clefs for the soprano, alto, and tenor parts, and then we're going to use a bass clef for the bass part. And that's different to how it was written in this kind of piano. This is sort of if you're writing for piano reduction, short score, it's sometimes called, because the tenor part here is actually written in the bass clef. So that's the only thing we just need to be careful of, is that we remember to, write this part in the right clef, so that it's easier to read for people who are singing tenor. But to start off with, we don't need to worry about any of that. Let's just worry about the soprano part, and this is really easy because all the stems are going upwards, and actually that's exactly what we need to do here to write this soprano part out. It's pretty simple. It looks like a hymn tune or something like that. And just try and keep it level with the score above, because it will help with laying out the other parts. Just got a minim here on the first beat, and we've got our pause over there, and then a couple more. Oops, that's not very good. You have to remember that I am drawing this out on a little tablet, so I would expect your handwriting to be much neater than mine, although my handwriting is terrible. Once you have mastered this on paper, no one would feel bad towards you if you just went and used a notation program like Sibelius or Noteflight or MuseScore. There's lots of them available, and they make writing music just so much easier. But it's good that you've learned how to do it on paper. I would recommend doing this. So the reason we've got some slightly different note directions. We've just got to this C, and normally a C will have the stem going down instead of up, and then I just kept it the same way for here, and then needed to go back to an upward facing stem for this A because it's too low really to have the stem going down. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's my soprano part done. So let's have a go. It's going to get more tricky when I can't see the two things on the same page, but let's have a go at the alto part now. Now there's no reason really to make the stems go down, because we just want to write something that's easy for the altos to read, and they're just looking at this line only. So the normal rules of writing out notes apply here. If it's below the middle line of the stave, then we can say stems going up, and if the notes are above the middle line, then we can have stems going down. And the thing is, we're trying to just line these things up, so even though we're writing out in 4 parts, it would still theoretically be possible for someone to come along and play this music all together on the piano, say, if they've practiced their sort of score reading, which is a really useful skill to learn, to be able to look at something that's written in 4 parts like this and just play all the notes, all the parts at once on the piano. That's a really helpful thing, particularly if you're sort of rehearsing with a choir or something like that, so that you can play everybody's parts. That's a really important thing. Now, one thing to note is that because we're writing individual parts for individual people, any kind of performance directions, so things like dynamics or tempo indications like rits or accelerando, all this sort of thing, they have to go into every part, because you can't guarantee that the altos who are reading this line down here are going to notice that pause up there. So we have to put it in for everyone so that they are on the right page, on the same page as everyone else, singing from the same hymn sheet. Haha, you might say. Sorry, this is getting quite tedious. So that's why the jokes are getting progressively worse as we continue. But you can just fast forward through this bit if you want. You don't, as much as I know you enjoy watching these videos, feel free to go to the end and just see the beautiful finished score. If you would like, I would not judge you at all if you're going to do that. Just try not to make any mistakes. There we go, on the verge of finishing the alto part. So it gets slightly tricky. Yeah, oh, this is really bad. Let's just try and draw my lines a bit straighter. Okay, so it gets slightly trickier here as we move down to the tenor part. Not something that hopefully will trip us up, but we've got to remember to write. We have to write the notes out an octave higher than they are going to sound, because tenors will just see that and they'll instantly know that we don't mean for them to sing ridiculously high like a soprano might sing. We want them to sing their normal notes, but we're just writing them in an easier place on the staff to read. So this is a B here, and this B normally goes kind of underneath middle C down here somewhere, but instead we're going to put it here. Actually, another thing that people sometimes do, you sometimes see this, and it probably in an exam is worth doing just to show that you realise, is that they write a little 8 underneath this treble clef, and this just shows that, you know, this is a treble clef which is kind of a magic treble clef, in that you write the notes sort of up on a certain level, and when someone sees it they'll sing it an octave lower, so you'll get the notes that you actually want. So we want this B below middle C, but to get that from a tenor we need to write it here on the middle line, and that just gives us the pitch that we want. So this is a B, goes up to a D, so we'll go here. And then going through these quavers, actually trying my best to line them up. Gets a little bit tricky. And again, you'll notice that the stems are going in a different direction, and that's just because of where this happens to sit on the tenor staff. So we've got a B again in the next bar. Actually, these should line up ideally with the notes in the bar above, because you'll notice there's some quavers here as well, which, oh dear, third time lucky, there we go. There's some quavers there as well, so ideally they should line up just so it's as clear as possible what you mean. And then it's an A and a G and an F. Ah, come on. Taking a ruler with you is definitely good advice if you go and do this exam. Having a ruler is really good. So we just need to finish this part off. Oh yeah, don't forget the pause as well, because we have the tenors want them to pause, because otherwise they'll just carry on ploughing through while everyone else is nicely paused. We don't really want that. Tenors tend to do that anyway, so you need to make it very clear what's going on. And then trying to get these quavers in the right place. And it's always going to be a bit rough. This is the nice thing about using Sibelius or another one of these music notation programs, is just all of this, you know, all the lining up and all of the making the stems go in the right direction and making sure that you're playing notes that these people can actually sing. All of that is kind of taken care of for you by the program, so it actually won't probably let you even write notes that are kind of wrong. So if you try and write a note for a violin that it can't play, you know, all of that stuff, it all sort of, I think it makes the notes sort of a big bright red colour to make it very clear that you've written something probably a bit silly. Because we can all do that, you know, everyone can write notes that aren't the right notes for various instruments and whatnot. So those programs really do help a lot. And I think once you've mastered the basics on paper, it will be silly. You know, no professional composer is going to probably do this anymore. They're not going to sit here. As you can see, it takes quite a long time. So writing in the bass part now. Bass part is just the same. So the bass part should just be a copy of what's on the score. Because bass, as you can see, the bass singers, they sing off the bass clef. Which makes sense. It's almost their own personal clef. So that makes sense that they would sing off that. So we just need to get some quavers in here. And so what I'm thinking of doing next, actually, once I've finished these music theory videos, is show you how all of this, all these ideas and theory ideas, they translate into a piece of software for expressing your ideas. I'm probably going to use Muse score, which is the leading now, I think, music notation software. It's free and it's open source and it's made by some really cool guys that I happen to know. And with that, you can make really impressive looking scores that don't look like a mess. So there's no way I would waste my time doing this nowadays. We know we've moved forward a little bit. Mozart was there with his feather quill, writing his stuff out by hand. And in fact, that was his most hated bit of composition. He hated sitting there drawing, because it is quite tedious. I mean, how long have we been doing this now? 20 minutes, and we've been drawing in these dots, and it is quite a laborious process. And we need to remember our pause for the basses. And so imagine how much more music, because Mozart came up with his ideas incredibly fast. I think they came to him as fully completed musical pieces, and actually it was just a bit of a drag to have to sit and write them down. Imagine if, because with these music notation programs, you really can get your ideas down much faster. So we might have had so much more music from Mozart, and that would be a really good thing. So anyway, I think I've done this now. So I have gone through each of the 4 parts of our soprano, alto, tenor and bass choir, and I've worked out which parts belong to which voice, and that's always very clear, particularly here, because all the stems are pointing in the right direction to indicate the voice or the part that we're working with. And so the only tricky thing, as I said, is just making sure that the tenor part is written in the right octave, because the tenor singers, they read from a treble clef where the notes are written an octave higher than they sing them. And I think we've done that. So we've made sure that when the tenors see this, they're going to sing these notes down here, and we've done that. So I reckon, unless I notice any strange mistakes or anything weird that I've written, which is not impossible, but I think this is done. We now have our nice soprano, alto, tenor and bass score that we could hand to a choir, and they would sing this very comfortably. So that is the end of question 3. I will see you for question 4.